Coming up next on Access Framingham TV is Framingham Fan to Fan, where we discuss all things sports in Framingham. Today we're going to talk Framingham High School history with special guest Jack Merloni from the class of 1958. This is going to be historic. This is Framingham Fan to Fan on Access Framingham TV. Hi, I'm Dave Hornfischer, a Framingham sports fan, and I'm pleased to host this interview show whose purpose is to highlight those who are involved in Framingham sports at all levels. We hope through this show to increase awareness and ideally fan support of these fun sporting events right in our community, and also to help use sports to achieve our station's goal of building community. Today we've got a real special show. We're going to talk with Jack Merloni, a member of the class of 1958. That's 60 years ago. His class is having their 60th reunion this year, and we thought it would be very timely to go back to those thrilling days of yesteryear and talk sports and what Framingham was like back in those days. Jack, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start by just talking a little bit about 1958 and what it was a little bit like and back in those glory days. I think we have a couple of pictures here of some things that might have been seen by fans in Framingham and people in Framingham. We'll start out with this car here. Today you have to go to Cuba to see one of those.
Yeah, these are all classics that you're looking at right now. They probably go for much more money than when they were purchased back then.
And you probably had one.
I did. I had a Chevy Impala 1958 red convertible, white top. It was great.
My wife had a 1958 Ford Fairlane, which lasted us several years. And then we've got one other picture here that sort of identifies 1958. This was the opening day of the baseball season, back when a president who was beloved by most everybody, Dwight D. Eisenhower, threw out the first pitch. Sadly, the Red Sox lost, but it still is a memory of baseball in those days, which was a lot different.
Sure.
Politics were a lot simpler, that's for sure. And in 1958, you guys weren't going to school in the current Framingham High School. You didn't even start in the second high school. You started in the Danforth building.
Exactly, the one that's downtown now. I think Framingham State has just purchased that building, and that building was part of our high school career. And
we have a little image here of the Danforth building.
And as you can see, it was like 3 stories high. So going into the new building our senior year in January, it was a blessing to have it all on one floor. Everything was new, and the gyms were in great shape, and it was just fun to go to the new school. We were the first graduating class from that high school.
Right, really, yeah, and you changed in the middle of the year.
Yeah, on January 1st.
Must have been
right after your Christmas vacation, we were all moved in.
That must have been a little confusing to everybody. Where do we, after 3 years in the other building?
Trying to find your own locker was a mystery.
And that building had been there 50 years. That was built in 1907, I learned.
Yes.
And now actually that building is coming down. The Framingham State University bought the other school, the one up right next to us here in the center.
Sure.
But yeah, that building has had a lively history, that's for sure. And now the building that you moved to is now about to have a major renovation. So
that's what I hear.
So there's kind of we're at an interesting transition point here on buildings.
Exactly.
But we're not here to talk about buildings. This is a sports talk show.
Sure.
And we're going to talk about some of the sports in 1958. I know you were on 3 different teams.
Yes, football, hockey, and track.
And that sort of kept you busy all year.
Well, it kept you in shape, that's for sure.
So football in the fall, I think we may have a picture of. We have a couple of pictures of the football team. They're going to come up here pretty soon, and one of them shows. There you are. Is your number
35.
35 on there. Let's talk a little bit about the football season.
Well, I think that was a JV team we had. That wasn't the varsity, but just about every player there was on the varsity, and we had a good year. You know, all the 3 years I would see. Back then, we didn't have freshmen. We had ninth grade, it was still junior high school, and we moved in as sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So we only had 3 years in the sport, and that was to start the JVs, and by the time we were seniors, we were pretty well gelled, and we enjoyed the game.
So that was the JV team, and then so did you play all 3 years you were there?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
And the team was, who was the coach back then?
Bob Jackowitz was there, and we had the head coach was Bingo McMahon. He was from Clinton.
Bingo, what a great name.
Oh,
he scored a touchdown.
He was there quite a few years, and Bob Jackowitz took over, I think, 2 years after he had left. Yeah.
So I read somewhere that you scored you were what position did you play?
Wide receiver,
wide receiver. Okay, so
yeah.
You don't look like you were built like one of today's tight ends.
No, back then I was about 5'9", about 140.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you had some speed.
You could have seen in that last photo that we were all small back then.
Right. Yeah, the difference, that's another one of
the difference in the size of the kids today is amazing.
A 300-pound freshman.
Oh, absolutely.
Happens.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
But I did read in looking through some of the materials that you did score a touchdown. And when I have some of the younger athletes on, I always like to get them into the moment of a touchdown. And when we talked a little, you relayed to me your moment of that scoring that touchdown. Can you share that with our viewers?
That was down in Milton, and they called a play, and the starting quarterback, when it was a passing situation, this fella Steve Langley came in. He had a better arm, could throw the ball farther, and so they called the play. I went out and I beat the back, and he threw the ball, and I just reached over my head. It was coming this way. I caught the ball, and from then on, it just felt like slow motion, because there was nobody in front of me. Nobody was really chasing me, and it was just a great experience. And I had relatives at the time living in Milton, and they had sent me the paper that the picture was of me catching the ball. So my only touchdown, by the way.
Chills in my arm just listening to that. When I tell the young athletes that I get on the show, I often ask them to talk about a moment like this, and I say, I want you to tell me one you're going to tell me 50 years later. Well, just the way you told that story, I can only hope that the young athletes that I have today can have the same memories of a great dive they made, or a wrestling victory, or a home run.
Some things you remember very well.
It's amazing, and I could probably share some of those myself, but this show's about Framingham, not where I grew up. So we played football. You were on a couple of years there, but you didn't beat Natick.
No, we didn't.
No, what a surprise.
They had an amazing team that year. They had this Art Hall, Dean Webb, and those were terrific athletes. And we got down there, and we started the game, and then we punted. And I remember this play. They punted, and we punted, and the fella caught the ball, and this Pete Sullivan, which is a great athlete for the Framingham, he tackled him and he fumbled. And being a wide receiver, I was down there to cover the punt also. And he fumbled. I picked it up, and that's all I saw was just go to the goal line, right? Yeah. But I got swatted down like a bug. I don't know where this guy came from, but that's as far as I got.
I think there's a little grass in your shirt.
Still there. Yes.
Oh, that's great. What terrific stories. Then I think we have a couple images of the basketball team coming up too. You weren't on the basketball team.
No, but I had many friends on the team.
Let's talk a little bit about basketball. This is kind of a blurry picture, but the point that I wanted to show is this was a gym that was in the old Danforth building.
Exactly.
Where in the building was that?
In the back of the building.
The back of the building.
Yes.
Is
and
that
you
now?
can see it doesn't hold many people, but they packed the stadium every day.
And it was loud?
Every game they were. They had the crowd because they were so exciting. They went 15-1.
Wow.
So they went to the tech tournament, and
I think we have a picture of a basketball team too, maybe somewhere.
Okay, that is that.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
And again, as you mentioned, that was a younger picture.
Yeah, that looks like they're younger at that picture.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But the basketball team was very successful.
Exactly. Yeah, the fellow number 20 up there is Chuck Richards. He was a good athlete himself. He was probably the tallest kid on the team. He was probably 6'3", but a good athlete. He played football, basketball, and baseball. And he got a tryout with some professional teams as a pitcher.
He did?
Yeah.
Did any of these guys go on to college and play basketball? Do you know?
Oh, yes, he did.
Yeah,
he went to Colgate.
To Colgate? Oh, really? That's where my son went. So.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
right.
there's always these connections. It's amazing.
Sure.
And then they went, so they only had one loss that year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they went to the Tech tournament in Boston. They played at the Garden, which was a thrill. Everybody was in there. And they didn't win the game, but they put up a good fight.
The old Boston Garden.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that was another great sport. Of course, the other winter sport that you were much more involved in and probably have a few more memories of was ice hockey.
Exactly.
You've got a picture up over my shoulder there of you on the...
I'm on the left up there.
On the left, and who were the other two guys?
Ron Brandolini and Pete Pleshaw.
Okay.
We were tri-captains.
And they're both still active members of your class of 1960.
Exactly.
I tried to convince both of them to come on the show, but they said that you were the guy, you were the TV star. They didn't want to do it.
Pass the buck, huh?
Pass the buck here.
Yeah,
but,
right.
So did you have to pass the puck to them instead of,
oh, absolutely.
Oh, how's that,
yes,
the buck,
yes.
the puck?
Pete Pleshaw played defense with me. Ron Brandolini was our best skater. Yeah.
Well, where did you play in 1958?
We played at the Boston Arena. Right now it's Northeastern owns that.
That was your home ice?
That was our home ice.
Really?
Back then, the whole Bay State League played the same night, all 8 teams.
Okay, so 4 games and started at 4 o'clock or something?
Yeah, and you're probably out there by 11.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Back then, we had a decent team, but we only practiced once a week up at the Worcester Arena. Today, they play every day. But we only had one ice time. We practiced down at Bowditch Field outside. We practiced on ponds, and it was amazing that we could put up a good battle. I think we had it 5-4, but they never scored more than 5 goals on us, any team. So it was exciting.
And the equipment that you wore was a little different than these football helmets that the guys wear today.
It was a piece of leather here and a little plastic back here, and that was it. Today they have helmets and face masks. We didn't have that.
Yeah, the goalies didn't start wearing masks.
No, Jacques Plante many years ago was the first one that ever wore a face mask, and they thought it was because of an injury, but he was smart back then.
Right. But and you didn't have a great. When did you start playing ice hockey? Did you start when you were a kid, or?
I started on the ponds,
Uh-huh.
and I was a pond skater way back then. Every weekend we had at least 1-2 games on either Washacum or Farm Pond.
Okay.
I didn't play indoor hockey until I was going out for the team my sophomore year.
That'd be so great. That'd be so great for the rec department in Framingham now to, when the ice really freezes over, well, if that ever happens.
Right.
In
riding around these days, I have never seen anybody on a pond.
No, I know. No,
they
you
don't skate. Everything is structured now with, and I think that's the biggest difference I see in today's sports is hockey. That they start them so young. If you're not starting at 6 years old, you're not going to make any high school team. It's just a great feeder program, and you can see how they skate today compared to where we were skating.
Start out pushing chairs and
they start them early.
And quickly move into pee-wees, and they play tournaments all over. And, yeah, no, it is amazing. My son started playing hockey at 4.
Our biggest competition there was Walpole. Walpole in hockey, and they skated every day. They had their own rink, so they were the dominant team. And then Natick was never in the Bay State League in hockey. Every other sport but hockey.
Oh, really?
So that wasn't a rivalry for us.
Okay, so it had to be Walpole then.
Walpole.
Did you come close to beating them?
No.
No. Okay. Okay. Well, there's always one of those teams, but you did have a coach who was somewhat legendary.
Yes.
Want to talk a little bit about this man and tell us who his name is?
Yes, it's Loring Arena. So
yes.
it's
Mr. Loring was
Loring,
the coach.
He was our coach.
Wow.
He was, I don't know how long he was a coach there, but many years, say about 5 years after we had left, he developed cancer.
Oh, really?
And they named the rink after him here in Framingham, which is wonderful.
And they're making a big renovation of that now.
Oh, I see. They are.
Yeah. So
Yes.
So did you remember much about him as a coach or as a?
No, he was a great coach. He was very, as hands-on. He just made it fun to play and stay competitive.
Did you have any hockey moments like the touchdown?
No. I scored some goals.
You scored some goals
Yes.
as a defenseman. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Defenseman.
Well, I played wing my first
okay.
year.
All right.
And then I moved back to defense. Yeah.
And you were also on the track team. I think we have an image of that was your third sport. We have an image coming up of the of the track meet, track team, I should say. That must have been. Did you work? Your sessions were all things all about it.
No.
No.
Matter of fact, they weren't.
Really?
We didn't have any home games here. Again, every team in the Bay State League was going to Needham. The high school in Needham had a nice track and all, and every team played in Needham.
So do you see some folks in the picture here who are still going to be at your class of?
Oh, I hope a lot of them are.
Reunion?
I can see some that are no longer with us, and it's a shame. But yeah, there's a lot of good athletes there.
What event did you participate in?
I was hurdles and long jump my my junior year, because I went for baseball my first year, and then I developed a thrill for pole vaulting.
Okay.
And so I started pole vaulting. It wasn't a sport, and it wasn't one of the events in my junior year, but they had a state meet, all Class B, and I pole vaulted there, and I came in fourth, and I won a bronze medal. Then my senior year, I tied for first, and I got a gold medal. So those are my thrills in sports.
So did Framingham, were they known for having good track teams?
We were a good medium team.
Yeah.
You know, we had good distance runners. We had very good field events. The track itself, I don't know if we did okay.
That's right. Wasn't that right around the time Roger Bannister ran the 4-minute mile?
Oh, yes.
That was around in the 50s somewhere there, right?
Exactly.
So that gave a lot more visibility to track, probably.
Sure.
Yeah.
A lot of interest, right?
Yeah. Quite one of the big changes in sports from when you and myself were in school are women's sports. And I think we have a couple pictures of images here of the girls basketball team from 1958. There it is, and field hockey as well.
Exactly.
You want to just talk a little bit about women's Did you ever go to a women's basketball game as a student?
Oh, sure.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the time, they would only dribble twice.
Okay.
They only had 2 dribbles, and then you had to pass. So it was very different rules, you know.
And
I remember
the players could only go
Donna
half
Silva was our athlete. And
Dawn Silva? Yeah.
Donna
Silva,
yeah.
huh?
And Sandy Langley, she's fortunate to marry my brother.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Oh.
and so I know a lot of the girls that are there.
Okay, well that's yeah. My wife played some basketball then too, and we have an image of her trying to shoot the ball. It was and jumping with her feet actually off the ground, which was impressive. And
exactly.
And she only could play on one half of the court though. And, and if there's one sport that's so different today, it's certainly women's basketball.
Exactly.
I wish there were more videos of some of these women's basketball games of the back in the good old days. I guess I'd say, yeah.
Exactly.
It really was. It really was. It's just such a huge difference. And of course, field hockey still continues today. The Framingham State team is actually a co-ed team. Our Framingham High team. They have a couple of boys on their team.
Oh,
I had them on my show earlier this year.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I'd never been to a field hockey match, and I went and watched one of them.
Yes, they do a good job here in Framingham on those.
They have.
It's surprising that, you know, back when we were, like you see in the yearbook there, they only had 3 sports for women. It was field hockey, it was basketball, and softball.
I believe the athletic director told me they was either 17 or 21 sports at the high school right now.
Just think they have swim teams now, they have, you know, volleyball, they have soccer.
Wrestling.
And, you know, some of the other.
Lacrosse.
Yeah, lacrosse. I mean, women play all those sports now.
Right.
Swim, yeah.
That has to make a difference in the teams too. I mean, back when you were there was only a couple of teams that you could play on. So if there'd been a lacrosse team, maybe you wouldn't have played something else, right? Or something,
Sure.
you know, and so
yeah, we were very limited to what
Yeah,
sports we had. Yeah.
But sports in general are really a lot different than they were then. Were you a big sports fan when you were growing up?
Well, we watch all the sports.
Uh-huh.
Yes, you know, the Bruins, of course. You know, back then, Johnny Busick and, you know, and all of the players that they had, the Red Sox.
Of course, when we think about the Red Sox, we have to think about Ted Williams, right? We have a little
damn Yankees, huh?
we have a little image coming up here that's going to identify both of those issues from the 1950s. There it is here.
Oh yes.
You know, the Red Sox may not win the pennant, but Ted won the batting championship.
Oh sure.
And then the World Series was won by, you know who.
Oh yes. Back then, Ted Williams was only making $60,000 a year.
I know.
Cannot believe it. And his career, his highest income was $100,000. And today's, you know, they're into the millions.
I found a baseball ticket. These pictures came from scrapbooks that I kept as a kid. Mm-hmm. I took every Red Sox game and glued it into a scrapbook, and I did that for 5 years.
Sure.
And so I still have them miraculously, and I found them.
Oh, that's good.
Well, in front of one of these was a Red Sox ticket from the 50s. It cost me $2.
Oh, sure.
And it was a grandstand seat right in back of the dugout that I bought the day of the game.
Sure. You can't do that today.
But yeah, I mean, there were a lot of other memories of the 50s. We had didn't the Baltimore Colts have a great win over the Giants in football?
Oh, sure. Back then, the Super Bowl was great. You know,
it was the NFL championship then.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the Super Bowl soon to come.
And we were just starting to watch things on television, right?
Oh, sure.
Did you have a TV in your house? Do you remember?
Not when I was younger.
In high school?
No, in high school, yes. Yeah. Not when we were younger, though.
I think we got our first one in 1957, because I remember watching it as a kid.
Sure.
But
yeah, there was only one television in our neighborhood, and we would all go over and watch it.
One channel, 3 channels maybe.
But that's it.
And
9-inch.
I don't think baseball was even on television, was it? Or, there certainly weren't a lot of sports, but you know, and now we get to you know, one of the other things that I kind of really wanted to talk a little bit about, and we can loop back through some of the sports, is just some of the differences. We talked a little bit about the differences in hockey, but you know, football is so much different than back in 1958. And
yeah, back when we were going through the school system, there was basketball and baseball were the feeder programs. You know, your Little League going, they had recreational teams for basketball. There was no feeder program for football, right, way back when. On any sport, golf, I'm not golf so much, but baseball was good. But, you know, I think that's the biggest difference now, all the feeder programs. You know, lacrosse today, you start like hockey players, they start very young. And by the time they get to high school, they're very advanced in this sport.
And the equipment was so different.
Oh, absolutely was.
I found my old glove from the 50s. I mean,
sure.
You could hardly catch a basketball with it.
Well, you talked about the hockey helmet. Most of us that were on the football team never had any protection in front, no mask at all.
Do you remember anybody getting a concussion?
Well, I got hit pretty good, and that's what happened to my nose. I got broken quite a few times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So, hate to remember those days.
Well, just your name, I don't know if any of the fans out here picked up the last name of Merloni, but you have a famous relative in Boston sports.
Yeah, Lou Merloni.
He's
done us proud.
Uh-huh.
If I could just show that.
He is your, he's your nephew?
He is my nephew, my brother's son, and he came up from the minors 1998, and first time at Fenway Park. He got brought up, but he was playing, the game was away at Cleveland. The first home game here in Boston, he hit a home run. The very first time up, and it was a wonderful thing, and we were pretty proud of him.
What a family moment that must have been.
Oh, it absolutely. He's brought us a lot of thrills.
Were any of you at the game when it happened?
Oh, we must have had about 50 people from Framingham. Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. I remember my brother going like this because he had 2 strikes on him, and he hit the home run.
Yeah, you see the family now. I mean, you were lucky you didn't have to go very far, but a lot of the families today have to come in. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And being a very good friend with Nomar, so we've had him in our home, you know, for Thanksgiving and all. So
those were some great Red Sox teams.
Oh, they were. Yes. It was a thrill.
And now he's broadcasting on the radio, so you have to listen to him all the time, right?
He's done a great job.
He really does.
WEEI, and then he has the baseball program on Comcast. So he's a busy guy.
Yeah, he is. So
he still will go to functions and fundraisers and things like that to give back, which is wonderful.
Well, that's something the athletes today. I think they're really much more in demand than what they were back in the 50s. The life of an athlete today has to be, you know, it's very difficult to go out to dinner, I would think.
Exactly, sure.
I'm not sure if the Framingham High School quarterback gets mobbed when he goes out to dinner today. But,
I never was.
but if this show is successful, we're going to have more people watching these, watching the Framingham High sports. And,
sure.
Well, I know you're having your class reunion coming up in a couple of weeks. It's the 60th reunion. How big was your class when you started?
We were over 300, I think 325. And the last class reunion, this 55th, I think we had like 60 to 70.
That's still pretty good participation.
It's pretty good.
Because there's probably there's still a lot of others that are alive probably. So.
Well, I've talked to a lot of older folks, and they say we have it during the day because we don't drive at night.
Right.
I think we're in that category because we're going 4 to 8.
Okay.
So we won't be driving after dark.
So if there's anybody out there from the class of 58 that hasn't signed up,
oh yeah, we'd like to have them sign up.
I want to thank Leslie Elkins, who coordinates this, and she really got me in touch with you and got us a lot of the material from the high school, including this incredible newspaper that was published back in the high school. It's hard to believe that I can't imagine a high school today publishing an 8-page newspaper like this. I love the headline on this one that says Framingham High School Flyers 2 romp over Natick. I think that's the game that you talked about.
Yes. It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Well, it was closer than some years.
Well, 39 to 7 was not close.
39 to 7. Okay, well, I think Framingham High School football is looking up, and I hope I see you down there at a game. As I warned you when we talked about doing the show, this flies by, and we're down to our last 10 or 15 seconds.
Well, it's been a thrill for me, too.
Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, you did a great job, and hopefully we added something to it.
Okay, well, let's thank all the athletes from Framingham High from the class of 58.
Hope to see you at the class reunion. It's Cyprian Keys.
Pardon?
Not Cyprian Keys, but Pinecrest.
Pinecrest in
in Holliston.
In Holliston. Okay. Well, thank you all for tuning in. It's been great having Jack Merloni on the show with me today, and I hope everybody else in Framingham TV land will get out and watch Framingham sports at the high school, at the university, at your youth group. And if you know people who were involved with Framingham sports in the past, talk to them. These folks have some great memories, just like we've proven today, and they'll tell you about a touchdown they scored. Thanks. Good night.